We were in the Eastern Conference Finals taking on the Miami Heat, who were led by the super team trio of LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh. This was definitely going to be our biggest test of the series yet. Our offense would go right to work in Game 1 as we would find Andrew Bogut on the pick and roll, but the Heat would waste no time as well as Chris Bosh would answer right back for them. And this play right here had a chance to change the entire series for us as Andrew Bogut would take a hard foul from LeBron James, and he looked like he was hurt bad and would have to be subbed out from there. We would have an update on Bogut's injury at the end of this game, as losing him for any amount of time would be devastating to us this series, as he was our main defender down in the low post for us and one of our go-to players in the pick and roll offense that worked so well. But it looked like for now that we would have to try and figure out how to win without him on the floor. Besides the injury, the game had not gotten off to a good start for us in any way possible. We were cold from the floor and wouldn't hit our first three-pointer until the second quarter, but the Heat seemed to be able to hit anything from anywhere on the court so far tonight. At this point in the game, the Heat had more than doubled our score already, and it wasn't even halftime, as we were going to have to make some very serious adjustments in the locker room to come out for the second half. I was hoping this three might get things going a little bit on offense with just a minute left in the first half, but man, was this an ugly game for us at halftime still. If anyone was going to step up and fill Andrew Bogut's role for us, it would have to be Mbah a Moute, as he was going to have to be our new inside enforcer and rebounder. But there's only so much you can do to stop an athletic freak like LeBron James from doing this to your team. At least things hadn't gotten worse yet headed into the fourth quarter, but there was just absolutely no stopping this Miami Heat offense tonight. We knew that we had ourselves in for a long series against this superstar team, as they would win Game 1 here on their home court, and things had the possibility to get worse as we would not have Andrew Bogut the rest of this series now. Without Andrew Bogut, that meant someone on this team was going to have to step up in his place. And early on, it seemed like that was going to be Larry Sanders for us on offense. So far in the first quarter tonight, he had scored all of our points, but on the defensive side of things, we were really missing Andrew Bogut's presence in the paint. The Heat would go up by 8 to end the first quarter tonight, and we needed to try to turn things around quickly as Keon Dooling would come up with a steal and a quick 2 points. We were hoping that could be a possible spark for us to start the second quarter, but it wasn't looking like it. We were only halfway through the second quarter, and the Heat were already up by 17 points and climbing. This play right here summed up how this game was going for us so far, as Mario Chalmers would get an and one, and we would at least get one last bucket before halftime from Michael Redd, as we would head into the locker room down 35-18. It took almost an entire minute before either team would score to start the third quarter, and unfortunately that team wasn't us, as it took almost 2 whole minutes for us to finally get our first points. Things hadn't really seemed to change much since the first half for us, as Miami was still piling on the points and extending their lead. For the first time this game, we finally would hit a three-pointer off an inbounds pass, so at least we had a little bit of momentum headed into the fourth. We would get the first bucket of the fourth quarter tonight against the Heat, but they wasted absolutely no time getting the bucket of their own. Our offense did seem to be playing a lot better than they did the first 3 quarters, but at this point it really didn't matter, as we hadn't been able to stop the Heat at all. They would eventually wind out the clock and walk away with a big time victory, as they would pick up the Game 2 victory here at home in Miami, and we'd head back home to Milwaukee down 2-0. We could not go down 3-0 to the Heat here at home, so we needed to make sure we came out and started this game off hot, which is exactly what we did. Even though we got the first 5 points of the night, we knew we weren't going to be able to hold the Miami Heat for long, as they were now only down by 1, and this foul on Big Z would send him to the free throw line, where he would give Miami their first lead of the night. Unlike last game though, we weren't going to let this Miami Heat lead get out of hand, as we were only down by 1 headed into the second quarter. Even though Miami would strike first and go up by 4 to start the second quarter, we were doing a great job of being resilient tonight and keeping ourselves in this game. Despite that, we still seem to be struggling on the defensive side of things, as LeBron was hitting shots against us from all over the court tonight, and as a result, we would head into the locker room down by 7 at halftime. Once again, we needed to turn things around coming out of the locker room, but LeBron James was making that tough. Thankfully, our offense wasn't going cold tonight like it did last game, as we began hitting many clutch shots here in the third quarter to stay in this game. We were now only down by by 3, and Dante Wooden would tie it up with this shot, and then we would finally take the lead back over the Heat here in the third quarter. The lead wouldn't last though, and we would go back and forth trading buckets with the Heat as we would be down by 2 points headed into the fourth. This was still anyone's game to win tonight here at home, as we were going back and forth with the Heat, down by 2 and tied until this shot. The game was tied all up at 51 apiece, and Dante Wooden would pull up from deep and it would be no good, as that ill-advised shot would give the Heat one last chance to win the game here, but Dwayne Wade's shot would be off the mark. So we were headed to overtime against the Heat here in game 3. They would strike first, and this three-pointer from Dwayne Wade would set the tone the rest of the overtime period, as it was all Miami Heat here in the overtime period in game number 3, and they would walk away with a 60-53 victory, as we would be facing elimination on our home court next game. We were back home in Milwaukee for game number 4 of the series, as we were down 3-0 and facing a sweep from the Heat. If we wanted any chance of winning tonight, we needed to be able to slow down LeBron James, and that wasn't really happening so far tonight. So the other thing we needed to be able to do was hit the three-point shot. If LeBron was going to beat us tonight, we were going to make sure he had to outscore us, but it was looking like him and the Heat offense could easily do that. Headed into the second quarter, we were only down by 4, but the Miami offense was not slowing down at all, and if we weren't careful and kept scoring, we could find ourselves down big time to them in this game. Thankfully, that didn't seem to be the case though, as we were able to keep up on the offensive side, and headed into halftime, we were only down by 2. Thankfully, we had got that deficit down, but Miami looked like they wanted to extend it, but unfortunately for them, our three-point shot was falling tonight. But I guess you could say unfortunately for us, so was theirs. We were down by 4 nearing the end of the third quarter, and Udonis Haslem would fight his way to the free throw line, as Miami would extend their lead to 5 points headed to the start of the fourth quarter. This lead was slowly but surely growing for them throughout the quarter, as we were now down by double digits and were trying to get this back to only a 9-point game. Thankfully, we were able to, but our plan on trying to stop LeBron tonight had not been going well at all, as after converting on that and one, we were down by 10 points with 30 seconds to go, and by that point, we had to just accept our fate, as Miami would come in and sweep us in the Eastern Conference Finals, and our season was officially done. So with that sweep, the Miami Heat would be advancing to the NBA Finals, where they would end up losing in 7 games to the Oklahoma City Thunder. And it would be time for the offseason, which is where we will pick up next episode.